everyone, and welcome to AMA number 4. Today we're focusing on how Unibright One fits into a more AI-driven environment, especially around auditability, provenance, automation, and scale. As before, this AMA is about structure and execution, not hype. So my role is to keep us on track, make sure we move through the questions in a clear order, and leave enough space for the important points to come through. Before we get started, you may have noticed that we have a new face on board today. Marten, why don't you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Marten, and happy to take the chance to introduce myself. Well, looking back about 25 years, I took a path that was rather much rooted in the music industry. So I studied guitar. I worked as a professional guitar player and music producer. That's where I finally met the other guys from Audiogroup and worked together with them on several projects. Then my role became more and more being engaged as the head of TV production, meaning being responsible for creation of movie and TV soundtracks and all the license agreements and rights questions that come with that part. While we were working on that, in 2009, I got the opportunity to join Tunesat as the European business consultant. And at that time, Tunesat, which is a US company, specialized in TV monitoring. They were using their own audio fingerprinting technology to detect music on television, which is important because as a rights holder and music producer or publisher, you are owning rights that get royalties when played on TV. So that was a very interesting field for myself, being a composer, but also being involved in the publishing space. It was interesting to finally find something, a real business and legal challenge to help publishers, composers, and labels claiming royalties from PROs based on technology data. And getting fingerprinting technology accepted by the rather traditional structures of broadcasters or PROs, that was not easy because it took a while to convince them how the technology works and so on and so forth. But finally we got there and we achieved that the first time in at least German history, a publisher got paid on fingerprinting monitoring data, which was a huge success. And since then, from that point, audio recognition became quite an established part of this world. And seeing how technology helps creators, publishers, rights holders to improve their payments and to finally get paid what they deserve, that was really exciting. I kept working in that field, and in 2017 we finally founded the German Tunesat GmbH, serving the Western European Tunesat clients. But we expanded beyond the linear TV monitoring and expanded it to the internet, meaning that we find usages of the music of our clients across the internet, which helps them to keep track when their music is being used and if the music has been licensed or not. And that's a more complex challenge because with TV monitoring, everything is linear. You can simply look at the stream and you know when was what playing. With the internet monitoring, it's always just a snapshot. You find something and then you have to make a proof that at a specific point in time there was something happening on the internet because the asset can be changed or taken down. So proving this in a verifiable and tamper-proof way is rather critical. And that's also where I was really excited to hear about what SPO was doing. And when I discussed with Marten, Stef, and Pierre, I said, well, with Tunesat, we are facing the exact problem. We need proof that something happened in the digital space. And this was just very exciting to see, well, that SPO actually, with the blockchain stuff, I'm not a blockchain guy at all, but using a blockchain to have an independent proof for music usage was like really exciting. Having a technical foundation that makes digital rights evident, tamper-proof and legal defensible is really a core feature for Tunesat, and that's why I'm here and that's why I'm so excited about our venture.
And to add this business of Tunesat, I mean, Marten already said that it started quite a while ago, but it has evolved a lot. And the main focus is on this internet recognition right now. And it also means that it's always only in connection with professional commercial companies and mainly big enterprises. So it's not like chasing down somebody doing a YouTube video, a teenage person doing a video using some pop music. It's about big companies doing advertising and promotions and, stuff like that, using music in their whatever it is, social media or videos. And often the music is not correctly licensed due to lack of knowledge of the right licensing. And this is exactly where the Tunesat technology, which is also in the meantime expanded by other recognition technologies, is super helpful. And then it's a very, very, I wouldn't say bureaucratic, but administrative service that needs to be extremely diligent. You cannot just, say, hey, you use this track here and now please tell us if you've got a license. It's much more complex, of course. It's a real hands-on legal service that needs to be absolutely crystal clear. And it's not only about proving what happened on the internet, it's also about making sure that we, as the service provider, or Tunesat as the service provider, knows about the rights chain of the music track, who owns what, who is entitled to do a claim, yes or no. And this is something that, of course, there has been tool chains built for that. But with the new possibility to have SPO join, the tool chain just becomes extremely more powerful and effective. And it's not only about putting something on the blockchain, it's also, and I think we discussed it in the last AMAs, it's about building tools around that, templates, additional tools, things that are user-faced, for our users, which are, the music publishers and the music labels, that can be used in a day-to-day that are not only tamper-proof, but also, feature-driven and actually usable.
Yeah, it's really, really great to have you and Tunesat on board, Martin. And I guess the whole use case, let's call it copyright infringement use case, I think it's a great one for the proof of execution platform we are building. And just to get everyone on the same page here, because I don't know if everyone has watched every AMA we've did. From the Unibright perspective, what we are doing is taking our expertise from the last 8 years, all our products like Base Ledger, the framework, and Unibright One, and we're funneling all of it down into this proof of execution infrastructure where we support different use cases, and the Tunesat one just being a great example of the templates and the use cases we support.
And I can also add something. I mean, we talk a lot about SPO now because this is a very good example of what we actually wanted to achieve with all the, let's call it, restructuring efforts we did in the last 2 years. The complete use case around Tunesat has a lot of parts, data, digital assets that need, or users that have access and needs to be managed. And all this is more on a, let's call it, software platform side, where 80 or 90% of the work has to be done in a classical software as a service environment. And then a proof of execution layer, or in our part, the Unibright blockchain part, adds to something that exists for, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, Martin, but I think you mentioned like 2009 where this all started. So it's been decades. So it's not that this whole industry or this whole use case waited for something like blockchain to appear. It already worked, but now we can put some final missing links to the complete picture. That's why it's very good to have Unibright as a blockchain solution provider within a consulting space. So this is a perfect example where this already works or worked out for one of the first example projects.
And it's the proof of a missing link, because in the past it was not that way. And it was a struggle to get past, test cases and pilots. And now with this combination of blockchain technology and the software services, we are very quickly in a position in which, this whole stack is being put into real commercial usage.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Martin, for your introduction, and thank you, everyone else, for the insights on the role that Tunesat will play. So let's jump into the topics of the day and start with the regulatory angle. How will the proof of execution platform serve as an audit layer for companies that need to prove verifiable execution under the EU AI Act?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess it has a few things in it we can talk about. First of all, the European AI Act, verifiable execution thing. What does that mean? It means that you have to be able to prove after the fact or in real time what an AI system did and how this AI system arrived at a certain output and under what conditions it operated. So for example, that means if you train a model like an LLM or any other model, and later on you do some inference and get information from that trained model, you have to be able to prove what information was used to get to that inference, to that output you came up with. That's part of the verifiable execution thing. And as well, it's about AI agents doing things or acting as a group, one agent with another one. Later on, you have to prove how these agents worked and what was the basis of their doing. So that's what this whole AI Act is about. And it's like with the Tunesat use case, this is one of the use cases we support with our infrastructure or proof of execution infrastructure platform, because it's one of the things that is being pressed by the EU. There are a lot of use cases. For example, we have the digital product pies as well, or the ESG things that are coming, or the supply chains. There are a lot of things that are forced by law where businesses have to prove that a certain event happened, whether it is an AI system or a traditional system. And that's a prime use case for our platform. Of course, it's our new proof of execution platform that supports these use cases. And as I just mentioned, it's just one of the things that are driven by law in the European Union here. And there are a lot of more use cases we're looking at. And just perhaps lastly, to piggyback on what Pierre said, that's just an example of where the space matured or where the regulatory pressure increased. Like now there is hard demand for these use cases, and that's a perfect moment for us.
What would it look like in practice for a company that wants to demonstrate compliance without turning its entire workflow into a heavy technical project?
It adds to what we mentioned earlier about the Tunesat system and where blockchain is like the missing link. I think the beauty of a proof of execution system, as we understand it, is that it always adds up to existing processes that are perhaps in a digital environment already. So it's just an add-on in that case. Or if it's like a little bit more of a free ground, we of course can, from the software perspective, we can actively influence how a system is built so that a proof of execution is bringing the most value because it's put at the right spots in the system. So a proof of execution should not make the whole process more complicated or add new technical loads that new people have to understand or that hinder the process in any way, but it should add on existing use cases. And what Marten mentioned, that we are supporting different use cases, also means that we are predefining templates for that already bundle the most important information that we need to extract from the process to give it to a proof of execution layer. So this whole integration part and not leaving the complexity on the user side has been something that's always part of the Unibright blockchain integration story. So we just continue what we did all the time anyway.
And perhaps just a short wrap up. What does proof of execution platform, what does it mean? Why don't we just write data to a blockchain? Why is that not sufficient? As we learned the last 8 years, it's not just about putting a hash on a blockchain. There's much more to come up with a proof that is valid in front of a court, that is valid with the current regulation. So it's about having off-chain auditors in place. It's about this idea of building a trust mesh. So you have different players, you have different versions of the proofs, you have amendments to the proofs, and then you have privacy features like some data might be seen public, other data is only visible to auditors. So it's a real system, and I guess we will come up with more information, or even with a white paper in a short period of time, and then everything will be much clearer. But it's a real system which will have baked into it all of the things we learned in the last 8 years, and that's just feels like everything comes together now.
I just wanted to ask Marten, as we have him on the call, without going into disclosing any client details, but Tunesat is a good example of that there are actually different roles participating in that system at different points in time. Yeah. And I don't think that that the users would be happy with if you just point them to a hash in a blockchain. but you need to put this into perspective of the process.
Exactly. In the real world business, you always need some front end where people really understand what they are seeing. For example, if we have a screenshot of a video on the internet, then people need to understand, okay, there's a screenshot, it has been taken at that time, and they need to go somewhere and see that under this hash, there is the proof that this screenshot has been taking place at that time. You cannot talk about hash sums with real clients. That does not work.
And there's a different perspective. So the license manager, for example, needs to see different information than the lawyer, and then the client, and the party who has been, perhaps unrightfully using the music. You have to disclose different portions of the whole data set per detection. And this is something, that can be handled in different views or however, but you need to make it accessible to people in a way that they understand. And the one thing you can be sure of is that they don't understand blockchain or hashes. So you need to make it, work in a way that it's basically, it can be implemented into real software that people are used to work with every day. Marten, what you said is also important that we've been doing some AMAs now, and it's all basically still only a warm-up to the point where we can release, either a full white paper or first excerpts of the white paper, which we wanted to do at a point, or will do at a point, where it's not just a white paper saying something, but where it's already based on, or where we can already link to, this is what we actually do with it. And again, not only in pilots, but in real world experiences. And that's I think that's in the end, the most important thing to run a business, to have something that is really being used.
Yeah. And that was a great example. As you just pointed out, we need user interfaces as well. I just remembered one of my last LinkedIn posts where I wrote something like, we stopped selling blockchain a few years ago. Like, we had this epiphany, like, it's not about blockchain first. Of course, under the hood and the system, of course, everything is blockchain first. We're writing these transactions and having these blockchain events, all of this. But of course, that's nothing a customer wants to see. So, of course, huge part of our system is a web front end where every role is served, be it an auditor or a lawyer or whatever. And the system still uses the blockchain transactions and events, but it's being put in a way that enables a business process and not as a tech-savvy transaction blockchain explorer thing that just don't work. And that's one of the things we learned in the last years.
Yeah, I want to emphasize on that because it has been something that has been in our mind from the very beginning. So when we started with the Unibright framework, we already thought in templates and in visual approaches for different audiences. The latest thing in the Unibright history was Unibright 1, where we focus more on the actual proof that is written to the blockchain. But this proof, or the way that proof is written, looks quite similar to all the users that want to write or read that proof. And this is something that the proof of execution system takes into consideration, that we have template-related information, partial disclosure, and also front ends for the different roles that are connected to a template. And yeah, this can't be important enough. I mean, we talked about this a lot, but now we arrived at a point where we want to make sure that it's already in the system, something where you can build templates above proofs and connect different views for different users with it.
To even add more to that point, Marten and I, and of course more people from the Tunesat team and also from the Audiogroup team, it's actually a big advantage that we're not blockchain experts at all. Because we look at this from just a totally normal, everyday client's experience. If Stefan and Marten would explain to us, if this is on the blockchain and this hash line goes into this, we would just say, well, okay, what does that mean? For us, it's basically, we need to see a web front end. We need to see a piece of software that works like an ERP or like a data management system, or, whatever we used to work with up to, I don't know, back-end systems of websites, whatever. So there's a certain technical experience, of course, on our side to work with tools, but it's by no means in any way linked to blockchain. So we're the best initial testers, because as soon as we don't grasp it, we can be sure that other people will also not understand it. And this has been, over the past few months, has been a very, very kind of fruitful partnership, I would say, because it automatically always puts everything into the client's perspective.
So that leads us into provenance and content workflows. Is Unibright building a new module for automated micropayments and provenance for AI-generated content?
No, we're not building a new model for micropayments, but provenance in the AI space is another template we're supporting, and another thing that is big within the Audiogroup space, I guess. It's about the question, as I just mentioned, if you have an AI-generated output, what data has been used to come up to this output, the classical provenance question. And you can do this technically during the training process of a model. You can have certain checkpoints and data being stored, and so later on you can come up with an estimate or a definite saying on what went into this output. That's all about this provenance thing, but we don't need a new micropayment thing or layer. And anyways, we don't want to get involved in this payment thing. That's not necessary. You can just use cryptocurrencies or even traditional payment providers to clear anything like royalties or so that come up with the provenance question.
I guess add to that, as soon as you are with a proof, you are in the blockchain space, or you are on something like a smart contract layer, you can of course add everything on that smart contract layer that you want. It can be entirely within a blockchain, and another smart contract really sends cryptocurrencies also, or bundles them, and then sends real values around the blockchain network. Or you can raise events to external systems that are perhaps not working inside the blockchain, but relies on proven events that cannot be altered, and then starts a classical payment process. So I would agree that it's not necessary to add another payment system. And if it was, we could add it everywhere, like also on the client side for using the system, or for a supplier side to be paid for orders or something. That's not a complexity level that we would dive into right now.
And it would actually also not solve a new problem. I mean, there's enough ways and solutions for that already. What is new is the provenance thing, and to perhaps give it a bit more of a hands-on perspective, because that's kind of the beauty of the thing we noticed when we started discussing why is Audiogroup such a good fit for SPO and UBT. Within Audiogroup, we have nearly all of the important use cases that this whole system can represent. Of course, on a small scale. I mean, we're not Apple, we're not Microsoft, but we have exactly the same issues on a smaller scale, which means that it's also easier to test. And to talk about provenance, now let's take an example. We have Boom Library, which is one of the most successful sound effects libraries in the world. And these sound effects sources are being created by, let's say, 20 different sound designers. And due to our structure internally, we want to make sure that they are being, paid correctly. So everybody who contributes in our team to Boom Library gets a share of revenue based on the content they did. Which means that whenever we start to create new content out of this existing content, we need to make sure that we have a clear trail of what has been used to do what. It could be simple mashups, like human person matching new things together and creating new content. But of course, generative audio is also a topic. And if at a certain point we'll reach the decision, or we'll start doing generative audio based on our original data, then all of a sudden we're doing new stuff that needs to be in some way distributable in terms of revenue. And this is exactly where the provenance layer comes in. And this is exactly where we can then, as a first step, prove that it works for us internally. So we solved a small problem, I would say, on our side. But then we have the next step within Audiogroup, which is a sound effect, which is a big marketplace for sound effects, where all of a sudden it's not 20 sound designers, but it's hundreds and hundreds of suppliers. And so far, they could not participate in this kind of business because there was no way to later on distribute the money accordingly. So all of a sudden we can scale to a bigger example, making new business possible for these people if they want to participate. And the next step then, of course, is since we're not just doing something as a pilot or theoretically, we can all of a sudden show this system to people who have this on a much, much larger scale, which is, music rights or any kind of digital rights, images, whatever. And we can not only tell them, yeah, eventually we could perhaps develop this. We can just tell them, look, it's already working and in place in these two brands, which are reputable. They're perhaps small, but they're reputable. And we can easily expand to the bigger scope.
Yes, and Martin, I mean, from Tunesat perspective, you already explained how it went from linear TV to internet. So I don't know if you can imagine that at one point the rights holders want to check on AI-generated content too, and if something of their license material went into it. So there would also be a connection.
Yeah, sure. This is always a huge topic in the music industry to prove existence of partial works or derivative works in AI output, or how to keep track of some output. Yeah, that's a huge ongoing discussion. So
is it a manual process currently in Tunesat, or is AI generated content just ignored for now because there are enough cases with regular music usage?
Yeah, well, with AI generated music, it's always a question about ownership. Who owns that material? Because that's also not clear 100%. In addition, but if you can prove that the output of an AI contains copyrighted material of a true copyright, then it really gets interesting. But so far, as of now, most of them, we are only claiming for real music, like handmade music. That's where you have ownership. Yeah.
It's the big catalogs of the big labels and publishers, and that's mainly all real music. But with every day, month, and year that passes by, of course, the AI-generated music will become more and more of a topic.
So the next question is how much of this can be automated directly by the framework itself? Will the proof of execution platform allow LLMs to baseline processes automatically? And how do you prevent AI hallucinations from undermining trust in the resulting records?
Okay, that's a great question and very detailed again. I was thinking about LLMs. I'm not sure if LLMs are able to do anything automatically, as I think they are being prompted against and just come up with an answer. I guess this question is more accurate for AI agents, perhaps. And AI agents, of course, are able to prove automatically with our platform because they can call the API, or as just a technical detail here, the platform is built in a way that you can use the API or you can directly use the smart contracts. So technically, the AI agent could do a smart contract call as well. So the answer is yes. AI agents, as any other system or traditional agent, can automatically prove things in our proof of execution infrastructure in the platform. And about preventing AI hallucinations, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps we don't know who put the question or how he meant it. We noticed that sometimes some of the terms within AI are just used for something else. So if it's referring to LLM as of large language models, perhaps it just means a big generative neural network or something like that. And of course, it can produce output that's based on probability and not on actual knowledge. So of course, an AI system and also an agent could do something that was not intended, because like every automated software system does.
Or even every human.
Yeah, even every human, of course. And this is a thing we also talked about in prior AMAs, that within the proof of execution, let's call it setup, where perhaps AI agents are doing some work. They're proving what they did by writing something to the blockchain via our API or smart contract. Then, of course, it may be and it will be that there are other parties involved, like human beings, that have to double check on automated processes that ended up in blockchain and give their okay as well. So the other way around, as perhaps it was before, where humans set up a process, and in the end, we had some technical helpers that made everything faster. Now we have the other perspective. We have AI agents that do work together, but need the human part for the actual proving that the process they prepared is really the right one. So this could be one way to understand hallucinations in terms of the AI is doing something wrong. And exactly then you need something like a proof of execution framework where the last proof part is done by humans.
Yeah, and then I just realized this question touches the first question we were talking about, where we were talking about verifiable execution. And the European AI Act, like then you have this LLMs or AI agents running in the European Union, and then you, as an owner, you have to come up with a way to prove this verifiable execution. So you have to say which data has been used and how did you come up with this output. So you're even forced to use a system like ours, and then I don't see this hallucination thing that it's just not allowed to happen under the AI Act. That's just something you don't want to see. It has to be deterministic or verifiable.
So if AI systems are going to be acting at that level, then transaction volume becomes a major question. How will the UBT model handle high-frequency transaction volume as autonomous AI agents become their primary users?
Yeah, I guess the question is easy to answer because, as I just pointed out, it's a blockchain-first system, as all the blockchain systems. So in the end, we're doing blockchain transactions. In that case, on an L2, like Optimism or Arbitrum, and so we are bound to the abilities of the underlying blockchain. The blockchain is very able to scale. It's just about the gas costs, and these are very low in this L2s. So we don't have to do a lot. We can just use the infrastructure because the thing we build, like our APIs and top and our user interfaces, we're used to building enterprise systems. They just work. I mean, looking at Base Ledger or Unibright 1, they are just working for years and years with zero downtime. We are sure we can build this, and the blockchains below are absolutely able to capture high-frequency transactions. So there's nothing stopping us.
Perhaps there was another perspective with this question concerning the transactions of UBT, so that they are also able to be fast enough to fire the next transaction in an L2. I mean, that's why we are introducing a credit-based system. That's also part of the token model itself. That's also part of the incentivation to use a lot of UBT like prior to the process and not while you're running out of UBT. That's a big incentivation to place those as credits. So in the moment where a high transaction volume is needed, the credits should be already in place, and there will not be a bottleneck at that point in time to feed the transactions that are connected to the process.
Yeah,
so
that's a great point. Yeah, you have to bridge down your UBT to the L2, and this might take a few minutes, and so you should have your credits ready on the platform. Yeah, but once they are ready, then nothing is stopping the system.
So this brings us to the final strategic question for today, where the focus should be in 2026. Among your target sectors, ESG, AI, media, which one is the strategic priority for 2026, and how will you scale the organization to capture it?
AI is, of course, a big hype right now, and it's a very big topic, and everybody's a bit overexcited, perhaps. So AI is, I wouldn't say it's not the first thing. It's something that we're looking at, and it's something that we learn from and can, prepare for. And there will be first things happening, I guess. But a bit like the blockchain crypto hype, a few years back, once everything gets overexcited and then everything falls down again, then afterwards the real development starts, and the real integration and the real use cases where you finally know this is a real use case that you can do, and this is just hype. So I think AI will be there for, not saying that it's all going to disappear, not at all, but it will kind of level out to a point where it will be much clearer to us. And also to all the clients who are using it and all the people who all of a sudden understand what is needed in terms of regulations, what is needed in terms of, like Marten said, deterministic truth. That is something that I think will only surface over the next years. It will, right now, it's still too new, it's too complex, it's too fuzzy, perhaps. What is very clear to us, of course, and that's because of, well, Audiogroup is the media thing, because that is totally, stable. It's very clear what can happen and what not. And also, due to the link to Audiogroup, it's something that will very naturally evolve. If I now, put my business development or sales hat on, if you want to get new technology or new solutions out to customers on an enterprise level, you should never try to sell something to them. You should always give a solution to them, help them, because then it comes naturally that they want it, because it gives them a direct, advantage, either higher efficiency or better results, or higher efficiency, which means lower costs and better results. And this is something that we can very easily showcase to people. The more we integrate with the Audiogroup use cases, we will, as a next step, of course, always be able to showcase this to media customers we have on larger enterprise scale. And from my perspective, this is the most natural way to expand all this. So I would say media first.
That's totally right. And first of all, the great thing is that we have to choose. I mean, there are so many sectors and use cases that the platform can support that we have to choose. And totally, as Pierre said, that's totally right. Yeah, media will be the first one with all the use cases within the Audiogroup. And then I also would say we'll have to see what becomes out of AI. We have this whole thing about training, learning, federated learning, and AI agents, but it's very much evolving. But we are close to it, watching it, and we're building the first use cases. And then all the demand created by law, as we talked about a few times in this AMA, whether it's the ESG reporting or digital product passes, there's a lot of demand. We are being asked by people. We'll see which will be the first use case in the law space.
So before we wrap up, I just have one question about the future. Looking ahead, what major updates or materials can we expect in the coming months to better understand the proof of execution platform and your overall direction?
Who wants to announce that we will come up with a white paper and a new website, a highly focused website where we can see this funnel of all of our expertise and products going into this platform. This is something we want to have done in the next weeks, coming up with a new Unibright website, along with the first white paper that shows all the vision and the solution. And of course, as we are already developing the platform, it's time to come up with a white paper. Additional, as we want to be able to target customers or institutions in the crypto space, let's put it that way, with some information and more detail, and then we need material that is publicly available.
And to add to this, thanks for announcing this, Marten, is that, of course, we'll try to stay close to what is happening again in the real business, although often, and I think we mentioned this in the past AMAs already, it's not always that easy to disclose clients' names and to disclose what we're actually doing. I think, of course, Tunesat is very much in the front there. We'll also try to show actual usage and actual, front ends or something that is more tangible down the road as far as we can without disclosing things that we are basically not allowed to disclose. And that's always, of course, a topic if you're in the B2B enterprise space, that a lot of the things you do cannot be disclosed for quite a while until finally they become kind of public knowledge, but that can take years sometimes.
All right. Well, I think that covers the core questions for today. Thank you for the thoughtful submissions and for joining the discussion. Thank you to the team as always. And if there are any follow-up questions or areas that we didn't fully get to, we'll carry them into future sessions. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.